hope and pray that the Supreme Court comes down in favor of former President Donald Trump's immunity push, at least according to Senator Lindsey Graham. Otherwise, the whole senator, basically the good old senator, he's predicting that Joe Biden could very well find himself in legal jeopardy if the high court sides against bestowing absolute immunity upon a president, especially when you think about the crimes of illegal immigrants that could be put on President Joe Biden's head real fast because of his border policies. I mean, think about it, guys. So yeah, possibly even President Joe Biden is looking forward to a Trump win in the Supreme Court ruling about absolute immunity for the president, guys. Now, before we really crack this nut open, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the video. We got a few folks coming in live already. What's going on? OG dog. We've got The Awakened. Awesome. We've got Michael Skeggs. Beautiful, beautiful. Happy Monday, you guys. So yeah, even Senator Chris Coons suggested President Biden will respect the Supreme Court's forthcoming ruling on former President Donald Trump's immunity argument. And then again, they may even want it for President Biden and not for Trump, because just recently, MSNBC, former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder, he said he was worried about the Supreme Court issuing a dangerous and absurd ruling in the Donald Trump immunity case. Now, what would be that dangerous and that absurd of a ruling for Holder, the Attorney General, right? Well, anything less than a decision by the Supreme Court that says, hey, a president should be held to the laws just like any other American citizen should be. Now, that might actually sound like it's against Trump, but really, it just I think it just shows how worried and how scared they are that Trump is actually going to win this thing, to the point that they're already preparing MSNBC viewers for the likely possibility that Trump gains enough or that Trump gains absolute immunity through the Supreme Court ruling. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it on you guys. We're live. What do y'all think? What's up, Keenan Ripon? We got Fed Up Patriot in the house. We got Brenda Jackson. Beautiful, folks. Get in here now. We got stuff to talk about. Supreme Court has just has yet to issue a ruling on Donald Trump's immunity case, but there is a lot that has come out. In fact, the former president claims that he is immune from prosecution in special counsel Jack Smith's election interference case. But we're paying very, very close attention, guys. Now, as the Supreme Court is set for an enormous week, what's today's date? June 24th. Okay, this is a huge week, guys. With just what, days until the justices' self-imposed deadline of finishing their opinions by the end of June. They have yet to release the decisions in 14 argued cases this term. So here are just the three biggest decisions that are still unresolved as the Supreme Court's opinion season reaches its peak. All right. So first and foremost, we got Donald Trump's immunity claims. We got the January 6th obstruction charge. Was the Justice Department proper in charging more than 300 January 6th defendants with an obstruction charge? Now, Biden's social media contacts, did the Biden administration coerce social media companies to remove false or misleading content in violation of the Constitution? So this is going to be a big one, you guys. So please stick around. I got a lot to share with you guys. I hope you guys are ready for this. But yeah, so first, let's hear from former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder surrounding the alarm on the he's basically sounding the alarm big time on this whole Supreme Court issuing what he calls an absurd and dangerous ruling on Donald Trump's immunity claim during an interview with MSNBC's Nicole Wallace. Check this out. Listen.
Waiting for the Supreme Court's opinion on immunity. And Trump has actually argued before the Supreme Court, and based on the questioning, has some receptive audience members to the idea that a president should be immune from prosecution. How are you thinking about this period, and do you have any predictions?
Well, I got to tell you this. I mean, anything less than a decision by the Supreme Court that says a president should be held to the laws just like any other American citizen should be. Anything other than that is absurd. The notion, for instance, that apparently some justices are fooling around with it. Well, if the president violated the criminal law but was doing so in his official capacity, there may be some basis to say that that's okay. We need to step back and think about that. Wait a minute. A president can violate the American criminal law if he or she is doing something in their official capacity. That is an absurd and dangerous conclusion.
Well, guys, you heard it here, and I think I can kind of imagine what a lot of you guys are probably thinking. The nerve of Eric Holder to talk about somebody who should not be above the law, right? But really, guys, President Joe Biden, he may want this blanket immunity deal for himself as well, because according to Senator Lindsey Graham, President Joe Biden, he better hope and pray that the Supreme Court comes down in favor of President Donald Trump's immunity deal. He's probably is highly likely he's going to want it for himself, because there's a lot of things that are coming out from under the covers that Biden kind of didn't want to let out. And I think some of you guys know what I might be talking about. If you don't, you're going to know in a moment. Quick shout out and thank you to the Big Five from Joseph Gassaway. Appreciate you, brother. Keep doing your thing. A lot of WW3 coverage that Biden isn't getting any blame for. He wants WW3 to keep power. How many? Number one, Joseph, appreciate your Big Five. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. Thank you for all the new subscribers, all the new channel members hitting the join button. Thank you so much, guys. Also, thank you as always for hitting the like button. How many of you guys think that Joe Biden wants to initiate World War III so that he can remain president of the United States? Because there's a big misconception surrounding that. But how many of you guys think that? Anyway, let's get back to things. Graham voiced some very serious concerns about President Biden potentially finding himself in a legal jeopardy if the Supreme Court, in fact, decides that presidents don't have absolute immunity. He actually mentioned a pattern of tragic incidents where victims were of Laken Riley to be released on parole because of lack of capacity. Y'all heard about that, right? The suspect accused of murdering Laken Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student, she had her whole life ahead of herself during a jog at the University of Georgia. Now, the suspected murderer, Jose Antonio Ibarra, allegedly illegally entered the United States and came from Venezuela. Ibarra was released on parole, an authority that allows certain illegal immigrants to remain inside the United States. So, yeah, basically, the suspect, Jose Antonio Ibarra from Venezuela, was allowed to stay in the United States on parole, which Graham thinks could land Biden in some very steamy hot water legally if there's no presidential immunity. Now, Graham also took a swipe at Biden for how he's handling other issues, like the parole laws, which he says that Biden has used recklessly to allow 1 million people to stay in the United States amidst the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and the instability in the Middle East, Hamas, Israel, you name it. Now, according to Graham, you have wars in the Ukraine. You have this intermediary war against Russia. You have the Middle East on fire. Now, when it comes to enforcing the law, Joe Biden, let's just be honest, he's been a little reckless. He's taken a parole statute that's limited in nature and has given 1 million people parole. So then you got Senator Chris Coons, one of Biden's top supporters in the Senate. He also hinted how the president may actually take a possible Trump win in the Supreme Court. Basically, that Biden will respect the Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. So the Delaware senator, he was responding to a question from Fox News on Sunday. I believe it was Shannon Bream, who asked if Biden would accept the Supreme Court's decision, given his criticism of the High Court for its decision on his student loan forgiveness proposal. Of course, the student loan forgiveness really just means everybody who didn't owe money in student loans, everyone who's responsible for their money gets to pay for other people's student loans. That's a whole nother issue. How many of you guys are happy to pay for some other person's student loan that doesn't help your income? You know, you're paying for somebody else's home economics degree. You're paying for somebody else's degree in dance, liberal arts. Unbelievable, some of this stuff here. Quick shout out for the Big Ten from Freedom. Freedom says the harder the left push their garbage about Trump, the more reasons he will naturally gain votes from Democrat voters, turning the Trump in November. And that's what I'm seeing too, Freedom. We're seeing all of this false news, all this fake news, all this false rhetoric, all of this dirt digging up and manufacturing of stories about Trump that in a lot of cases are literally just it's making the argument that many people who have either voted Democrat for a long time or have been on the fence are saying, hey, this looks like the fake news that Donald Trump has been talking about forever. So they're getting to see it. And so, yeah, I guess they can keep on talking, right? Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump, who's dealing with his own legal challenges at the moment, he has said he'd appoint a special counsel to look into the Biden family's overseas shenanigans / plots / schemes. Just a little reminder of a very similar promise Trump made to, what's her name? Hillary Rodham Clinton. Yeah. So former President Trump has also said some pretty similar sentiments to Graham and has that he is, in fact, fighting for presidential immunity for the sake of the presidency. Biden, 81 years old or 81 years young, depends on how you want to look at it, has largely kept quiet about Donald Trump's legal issues. But last year, the president said, hey, he can't think of one reason why presidents should have total immunity from prosecution. But now, with Hunter Biden in hot water and Republican lawmakers looking more closely into Biden's family affairs, maybe President Joe Biden's going to change his tune, because now it would benefit him and keep his butt out of jail, maybe keep his son out of jail, yada, 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 right? So now Donald Trump's legal team has deployed the presidential immunity gambit ever since, last year in response to his 4-count indictment over alleged 2020 election subversion, a trial, by the way, that's essentially, currently paused as the Supreme Court kind of mulls over this whole immunity question. But yeah, so the trial is basically in limbo right now until the Supreme Court can settle the question of whether the president should in fact have absolute immunity. Now, what do y'all think? Should presidents have absolute immunity? That's the real question. But interestingly enough, like Graham, Donald Trump's attorney, John Sawyer raised the border crisis as a hypothetical during oral arguments back in April. During the court's discussions, it kind of seemed like the justices were trying to find some sort of middle ground on presidential immunity. And they may have even kicked the issue back to the lower courts to kind of work out the details. Now, Graham, he also commented on the Democratic pressure on the Supreme Court, accusing them of being upset because the court is now making decisions based on the Constitution rather than on politics. Now, according to Graham, they're basically squealing like stuck pigs because the Supreme Court's no longer a political body. It's actually looking at the Constitution and making constitutionally sound decisions versus political decisions. He says that is the problem that the liberals have with the court. The libbies, the woke mob is getting pissed off about that. Now, as my uncle says, dear Democrats, dear Democrats, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Love always, SCOTUS. Funny guy, my uncle, right? But yeah, I mean, we just have to see, guys. We just have to see. But I don't think we're going to be waiting that long, to be honest with you guys. Like with the Supreme Court bogged down with a backlog of 14 cases in backlog. Last I heard, we're expecting some decisions to come out pretty soon. So make sure you guys, make sure you're always tuned in. That way you are made aware. That way you get the news as soon as it drops. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button, guys. Hit that notification bell. Hit the join button if you want to become a member of the channel. So many new members. It's absolutely amazing. I really do appreciate you guys. And if you haven't already, do show your support by hitting the like button. Totally appreciate it. But getting back to it, The Supreme Court is gearing up for a massive week ahead, guys. I mean, they've already set themselves a deadline to kind of wrap up their opinions by the end of June. There's only a couple more days left, right? And, so it's really coming down to the wire with 14 cases still pending. But among these cases, a particularly significant decision still looms here regarding whether former President Trump is going to be immune from criminal prosecution. Now, the remaining cases also covers a broad range of important issues, including those involving January 6th defendants, social media rules, and of course, the scope of federal agency powers. Now, we can look forward to the next set of opinions that are coming out in the next day or two. Jack Smith's case is on ice for the most part. And, this is, I mean, when you look at all of the surrounding circumstances, the Supreme Court's pending decision, this is a big, huge blow for Jack Smith. And Merrick Garland's clearly not happy about this. In fact, why don't we take a moment just to kind of see just how monumental these decisions are going to be coming from the Supreme Court, right? So first, there's Donald Trump's immunity claims, right? Now, if Donald Trump's immunity claims hold up, Jack Smith's case is going down the toilet. But do former presidents get a free pass for official acts while they're in the White House? That is a big question. This is the question as former President Donald Trump defends himself in the criminal trial in Washington, D.C. He's facing charges that he tried to overturn the 2020 election results and argues that he should be shielded by presidential immunity. Now, so far, the lower courts have essentially rejected his assertion, but the Supreme Court at oral arguments appeared kind of inclined to carve out at least some kind of immunity for former presidents. Very good news for Trump. And this is why I say that Joe Biden is going to be kind of rooting for Trump on this one as well. Some people argue that it should be special counsel Jack Smith and Attorney General Merrick Garland that should be investigated and put in jail. What do y'all think about Jack Smith and Attorney General Merrick Garland getting investigated and put in jail? Is that more appropriate? Quick shout out and thank you to Freedom for the Big Five, my friend. The special debate coming up with Biden and Trump is like a newborn trying to talk with an adult. It's a laughter. It's going to be real interesting. I'm tempted to try to do a live stream and kind of watch that debate with you guys. What do y'all think about that? Watching the Biden Trump debate in the next couple of days live with you guys. Let me know if y'all will be interested in that. The Supreme Court seems to be considering the idea of some immunity for former presidents based on some of these recent discussions that we've been hearing. In fact, they might not give Trump the wide-ranging protection that he's looking for, but even a limited shield could actually help him push his trial past this election, which he's aiming to win back the presidency and potentially stop all these nonsense prosecutions altogether. But despite the urgency, the Supreme Court has actually moved faster than usual on Trump's appeal. But some critics are still a little frustrated, basically wondering why they can't move things up a little bit faster. But, it is what it is. But as it stands, their final decisions could easily overlap the first presidential debate that's scheduled this week. So now, wouldn't that be something, right? So next, there's the January 6th obstruction charge. So basically, was it appropriate for the Justice Department to hit 300 people, 300 January 6th defendants with an obstruction charge? Was that appropriate? Joseph Fisher, one of those who got charged, is challenging the obstruction law as we speak, which was used against him and many other people after the riot. He argues that the charge, which criminalizes corruptly obstructing, impeding, and interfering with an official government proceeding, shouldn't have been applied to the rioters. He's arguing that this particular law was originally crafted in response to the Enron accounting scandal, and he feels like it's being stretched beyond its intended use. Y'all remember Enron, that company in the stock market? They went out of business, and I think didn't they do something wild, like they was stealing a bunch of people's 401k and IRA money, something like that? Whatever the case. People thought they had a pension with them, and then they found out that they didn't. I mean, it was a big, huge mess. I don't remember the exact details. But during the oral arguments in the court, the justices, they seemed a little bit skeptical about the government's choice to use this charge. Now, if the court agrees with Fisher, well, I mean, this could upend a whole lot of already decided cases. So, while a lot of rioters were convicted on other very serious charges, 50 of them faced this particular obstruction law on their only felony, according to U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar. So a ruling in favor of the rioters might also lend a little bit of support, maybe even a lot of bit of support, to claims by former President Donald Trump and his allies that the Justice Department, hey, y'all may have overreached in their prosecution of the attack. So Trump has also vowed to consider pardoning some of the rioters on day one of his potential administration. And finally, it could also weaken the Justice Department's stance that the Capitol riot was a direct attack on American democracy. Now, speaking of government overreach, right? Like, there's also this pending Supreme Court ruling on Biden's social media contacts. Now, the question being, did the Biden administration coerce social media companies to remove false or misleading content in violation of the Constitution? I mean, this whole debate kicked off as the Biden administration trying to manage the misinformation following the 2020 election and the COVID-19 outbreak. And it ballooned into a heated legal battle. Two Republican attorneys generals are claiming that the federal officials violated the First Amendment by coercing social media companies to remove content that the government deemed potentially dangerous. Quick shout out to where'd it go? Quick shout out to Jackie Klein for the big 5. Appreciate you. If there is a debate, do it live. We can catch the circus together. All right. I hear you, Jackie. Appreciate the love. And thank you for letting me know that you would be interested in watching the debate if it does, in fact, happen. Appreciate you, Jackie. Good looking out. The Justice Department has pushed back, warning that if the court, in fact, does actually side with these claims, it could seriously tie the government's hands when it comes to handling public safety concerns, national security threats, and distributing vital information. However, during the oral arguments, it looked like the Supreme Court might actually lean towards supporting the government's stance on this one. So, guys, big week to say the least. You know what I'm saying? Big week ahead for the Supreme Court. Make sure you're always tuned in. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bells. Make sure you are locked and loaded, as they say. But yeah, guys, as we wrap up today's discussions. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to check out this other video I did where we pretty much dive into some explosive revelations regarding the Young Thug trial. Lil Woody's former lawyer came forward with some new details about this ex parte meeting between Lil Woody, Fulton County Judge Earl Glanville, and DA Fani Willis's office. Yet another DA that has it out for former President Donald Trump. So, yeah, and DA Fani Willis, the same Fani Willis that's trying to get Donald Trump for the Georgia election interference case. Anyway, make sure to check out that video right now in the description. I'll put a link for you guys. So you can check that out. I don't know if I put the link in there yet, but just look in the description of this video. You should see a link in there. But anyway, guys, wild stuff going. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Stay on your toes, guys. Stay ready. There's a lot more coming. Real quick shout out to Will Crump. Appreciate you for the big 5, my friend. Will Crump says, I'm afraid that somehow the left will get Judge Cannon removed from the case because she is following the law. Jack Smith must go. That's a frequent concern. That's a frequent comment that I see on the channel, that people are worried that, folks who are judges, who are in the Supreme Court, who are not judging based on political standing, but based on constitutional relevance, they're worried that we may lose more judges that are making decisions based on the Constitution. That is a scary problem to have, guys. Very scary. We'll keep close watch on this one. Appreciate you, Will Trump. Will Crump. A lot more to bring you guys. Keenan Ripon. Did anybody see Catalia in the comments? I don't think I saw Catalia. I hope she's doing well if I overlooked her and if she's not with us on the live today. Anyway, guys, appreciate y'all rocking with me, and I will see you